Absolutely none. When she came home, we for some reason, because of COVID, we had no instructions on how to do anything, and she was on a feeding tube, which she still is, but I figured it out, and it was very daunting to come home in a hospital bed with a trach and a feeding tube and not able to communicate. It was I was actually told not to bring her home. They wanted her to go to a facility, a long-term facility, and I didn't want that. And I know that she's thrived as a result of being here. She wouldn't be as well as she is if she was elsewhere.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Recently, Spotify released a new feature which allows people to now rate their favorite shows in the same way that the Apple Podcast app allows it. If you think the Recovery After Stroke podcast deserves it, I'd love it if you left the show a 5-star review. This will help the show rank better on search engines and help newly diagnosed stroke survivors find the show, and it could make a massive difference in their recovery. So go to your favorite podcast app and share what the podcast means to you. It really will make a huge difference, not only for stroke survivors, but I will also appreciate it as well. Now, this episode is 185, and my guest today is Alina Gonzales, who experienced a bleed in the brain at age 40 that was caused by an AVM. When she reached out to connect with me via Instagram Messenger, she wrote, "Hi, Bill, I want to help. I'm 16 months post-event. How can I be useful? Thank you, Alina." It was an impressive first introduction. And of course, Messenger doesn't reveal the extent of how the stroke has impacted my guests. So I'm always impressed when they turn up and move heaven and earth to be on the other side of Zoom. This was no different. Assisting in the interview is Alina's mum, who is sitting out of frame for much of the podcast, but she does appear at the end of the episode where we finally get to see her face. Alina has vocal cord issues that she is working hard on rehabilitating and also experiences difficulties with her balance, among other things. So listen intensely because what she shares is surely to be useful to your own recovery. Alina Gonzales, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well. It was a bit of a struggle for you to get to this meeting. You've missed it a couple of times, and today you're running a little bit late. You finally got here.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. Everything takes more effort and more time.
Everything takes more effort and more time.
Yeah.
What happened to you, Alina?
I was, Mom, hey, Mom, my mom will tell you more about what happened. Can you tell them what happened? My mom is here.
So we don't both fit in the one chair, but my name is Barbara and I'm her mom. And she basically had a stroke close to 2 years ago. And it was unexpected. And she was driving and she felt very dizzy, and she called 911 and they took her into the hospital. And the emergency room attending doctor, when I arrived a few minutes later, told me that she wasn't going to make it because the brain bleed was such that it was inoperable. So, and she wasn't responding. She wasn't waking up. They had given her a sedative, and she's very sensitive to medication. So she wasn't coming out of the sedation. So a couple of hours later, she started to respond, and she was airlifted to another hospital where they tended to her needs, and here she is.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was in the hospital for about a month and a half, went to rehab as an inpatient for about a month and a half, and then came home probably about a year ago. and she's trying to gain her mobility so she can gain her independence back.
Yeah. Wow. So what kind of stroke was it?
Hemorrhagic stroke.
Hemorrhagic.
How long was that in coma for?
She was in a coma for about a month.
And do we know the cause of the stroke, of the bleed?
It was an AVM,
Yeah,
arterial.
it's not for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Arteriovenous malformation. It's what I had, and it's seems to be very common in this podcast, but it's apparently a very rare thing. It's only about 1 or 2% of the population that have AVMs.
of course. Yeah.
It's too bad. She was obviously very health conscious. She had a great job with a pharmaceutical company. And she has her master's. She was an athlete in college. She had a scholarship and she played basketball for one of the schools here. And this was very unexpected. Really has turned our lives in a different direction.
Yeah. That's a pretty common thing for people to say about what stroke does to them. How old were you at the time, Alina?
40.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was any signs up until the day of the bleed that you had something going on in your head? Was there any signs whatsoever before that? Did you have a clue?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere. It was a surprise.
Yeah, that's some surprise, isn't it?
Yeah.
And since you got out of hospital, what was it that you were having to overcome? I realize that you have some speech challenges. Do you have aphasia? Is that one of the things?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yes, she has a frozen, or rather not frozen, a paralyzed vocal cord, her right vocal cord. And she was on a ventilator for about 4 weeks, I think. And then she had a trach, and she came home with the trach, and then she had it removed. But what her major problem right now is the dizziness and the lack of balance, because she's able to walk with assistance, but she can't seem to stop getting those dizzy spells that are pretty constant.
And is it always dizzy even when you're sitting down?
Yeah. It's worse, yeah. So, the only time I don't feel dizzy is if I'm laying down.
When you're laying down is the only time you don't feel dizzy.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you're laying down a lot?
No, I've been walking every day with my mom. We go to the gym and I walk the track about a quarter mile every day.
Yeah.
I walk.
And the dizziness, is it worse some days and better other days? Do you find a difference in sometimes the dizziness not being so bad?
It's bad every day. Yeah.
It's bad every day.
Every day is bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Every day is awful.
Okay. So the sound of your voice, is that related to the tracheostomy that was used? Is that impacted your vocal cords? Is that what that's done? Or is that impacted by the stroke? Do you know do you know which one it might be?
They claim that it's related to the stroke. My opinion, having been by her side from the beginning, I feel that it was the trach, that the trach was probably left in too long. And then when they did suctioning, the suctioning was done in a manner that would, in my opinion, would cause some side effects. So we differ on that opinion.
Yeah. hard to know, isn't it? And it's really then also hard to, I'm not sure about how you guys go about it or how you feel about it, but whether or not you can lay blame or even whether it's worth laying blame, because what they're trying to do is save Alina. And it's kind of one of the things that happened as a result of trying to save your life. So you kind of, do you take the good with the bad? Does that annoy you that you also have to deal with that and that maybe somebody else was to blame for that?
Yeah, I just want to feel better and communicate normally.
Yeah. Does your voice sound better than it used to, Alina? Or was it a lot more crackly than it is now?
I could talk for a while at all, so it's better. It's better than it was.
It has improved.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. What else has improved since the stroke?
What do you think improved?
Well, I mean, cognitively, she's very good. So her walking has improved a great deal, and it's been a slow journey with a lot more to do, and she's impatient about getting it all done
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Well done. That's pretty common. That's well done. And also be more patient, and well done for being impatient. Find the balance if you can, because by being impatient, you're pushing for recovery, but that might frustrate you. So if you get too frustrated, then you're being too impatient, and then just like slow down a little bit. What I love about you, Alina, is the first time we met, you sent me a message on Instagram. I never knew who you were up until then. And you said, "Hi, Bill, I want to help. I'm 16 months post stroke. How can I be useful? Thank you, Alina." I mean, I find that staggering and amazing and brilliant that you're 16 months post stroke and you've got your own challenges that you need to overcome, but you want to help other people. Why do you want to help other people? And I love that you do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking silly the question in that way to be silly. I'm just very curious as to what motivates you to want to help other people while you need plenty of help yourself.
because I think there's a lack of understanding when it comes to stroke. I don't think people understand what people go through when they have an event and what it feels like to recover. I don't think that a lot of people understand. And I think that people who have had stroke need help, need support.
Yeah, I love it. There's a lack of understanding of what people are going through stroke, and other people out there that have had a stroke need to know that they're not alone.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
we need to bring awareness to these situations. So what I'm seeing is that every time I interview a stroke survivor, that behind the, I'm going to call it the mask of stroke, behind the deficits, behind the voice problems, behind the dizziness problems, there is a quote unquote normal person behind there who is still keen and interested in living a really productive life and is being interfered with by these things that stroke caused. Do you relate to that? Is that sound?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like because I'm there cognitively, I I struggle more because I I know the life that I'm missing out on. I'm missing out on living.
You're
Life.
missing out on living.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, you'll be getting back to living your life again?
I think so, yeah.
All right. So
want
that's,
to.
you will. So that's what's really important. What you just said is that I think I will be living my life again, and you will, because I've met so many stroke survivors who have been through what you're going through, and somehow after 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, things do shift and they start to find their way in the world, and they start to become really um, uh, important members of their community. I'm talking about the community that lives around them, their family, their friends, their where they actually live and go to the shops and do their shopping and all that kind of stuff. They start to become really important there. They become really creative, find creative ways to help. And right now, I know this is might not be what you want to hear, but it's actually time to heal, time to rest, and time to do nothing, and time to do as little as possible, other than put all your focus and energy into just getting better and recovery. And I know it's been 16 months, but it's actually quite early in the stroke recovery phase. You're very, very early on. And I know you're impatient, but if you could kind of get your head around the fact that it's really early, it's not like a broken leg, then I think 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there'll be stuff that you're still dealing with that you still have to overcome every day, but things will start to shift in a direction that you're controlling, and you'll be back in control of your life.
That sounds good. I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the dizziness, what are the doctors saying about how to make that less of a problem? Do they have any ideas about how to support you with the dizziness?
What does it say? What my disease?
Well, they've said that she should try and do vestibular training where she works through it without literally passing out. So generally her impulse is to slow down when she gets dizzy. What they're suggesting is that she meet it head on and just keep pushing through it, because the more she does that, the likelihood is that the dizziness will subside. So that's the theory. But she also had loss of hearing in her left ear, and she's considering a cochlear implant because they've done research on the fact that loss of hearing can cause a lot of imbalance. So we're exploring that now.
Wow. So loss of hearing can also impact your balance.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. That's got to be true, because it makes sense, doesn't it? When you can't hear out of one ear, it throws off your senses, and it might impact the way that you perceive the world and the way the brain receives information and then tells your body where it is in the world. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So is the hearing completely gone in that ear, Alina?
It's completely gone. And my left ear is gone.
Okay. So the cochlear implant will restore the hearing if you get that.
Supposed to have, yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to, yeah.
Okay. So I interviewed one of the pioneers of the cochlear implant, also a neuroscientist, Michael Merzenich, Dr. Michael Merzenich, who is from the United States. And that's going to be a very interesting episode for you to listen to, I think. And also, there are some people that you need to look into, and I'll send you all the links. And for the people that are watching, I'll have links on the show notes, or the people that are listening as well. There's a gentleman called Paul Bacurita, and back in the 80s, he used to work with people who had balance issues. And one particular lady was a lady who became unwell and lost her inner ear, her inner balance in the inner ear, wherever that is. And as a result, she couldn't live her life. But then they rehabilitated her with this device that replaced, believe it or not, that created with neuroplasticity, used the tongue to replace the inner ear balance mechanism. And I can't describe it really well, but it was fascinating. And there's videos of it on YouTube that you can watch. And there is also the interview with Dr. Michael Merzenich, and I'll send across that information, but also for people that are listening and watching, you can go onto the recoveryafterstroke.com website, click the podcast link, and there you'll see the list of episodes. And in that list, there'll be a podcast that says, I'm going to find it right now. Rewiring the Brain, Michael Merzenich. And it's an amazing discussion on how far the study of neuroplasticity has come and how it's helping people overcome some amazing challenges. So what it does is offers hope, but it's also supported. It's a really big rabbit hole to dive down, and it's also supported by a lot of research and studies. So it's legitimate, and it can improve lots of things for a lot of people. I interviewed Dr. Merzenich a number of years ago, and the episode number is episode 108 for anyone listening and watching. So you're living at home with your mum now. How has your life changed since the stroke? How were you getting about before stroke?
Yeah. I have no independence at all anymore. I can't do anything for myself. So everything I need help with. So showering, going to the bathroom, cooking. I can't drive. I can't walk. Everything I need help with. So I have no independence at all.
And before that, what were you doing? How were you occupying your time?
I was working. I had a really good job, and I was driving, and I was doing theater. I was doing local theater, and
You were involved in the local theatre?
local theater,
Yep.
local theater. Yeah.
Yep. So you were actor?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
a lot to lose, isn't it?
Yeah. I miss my job. I miss my boss and the people that I work with.
Yeah. Have you been able to reconnect with any of them
I
recently?
Yeah, I talked to them, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I talked to them, and they want to know how I am, and that's right. I want to talk about business.
Do you think it's difficult for them to reconnect with you now that you've changed? And is it hard for them to know what to say, do you think, or how to behave?
I think that's probably part of it. Yeah, I think they're kind of at a loss for things to say, and they worry about not saying the right thing.
Yeah. Is it possible for them to not say the right thing? Will you get offended if they say the wrong thing because they're ignorant and they don't know any better because they've never had what you've had? Would that offend you?
No, not really. I understand because I already know that there's a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
out there in jail.
I love that. I mean, there's no point getting offended, is there? Because it's not personal. It's just literally people actually do not know what the hell is going on in stroke world. And they don't know how to respond, and they don't know how to speak, and they don't know how to make things better. And that's what a lot of people try and do, don't they? They try and make things better
Yeah,
because they want to help, but they don't know how to do that. So it becomes really awkward.
yeah, that's true. I, I just, I, I want them to be honest and upfront with me, but I think that they worry about things. But that's something that I want to change moving forward. I don't want to stress out about anything anymore. I don't want to worry about the things I worried about before.
Yeah.
I don't want to stress. I don't want to stress out.
What kind of things were you worried about before that don't matter anymore?
Like why people act in a certain way, or why at work, like why I wasn't doing better at work, or why somebody maybe didn't like me.
Why somebody didn't like you, why you weren't performing enough, why you didn't do too well on that project, all the usual junk that in the end doesn't actually make for a healthy or happy life, does it?
It doesn't matter.
At all.
It
I agree.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like for mum? How has mum been able to share with you how difficult it is for her at the moment?
I love it. Yeah. How was it for you?
It's difficult, but I'm so grateful to have her home that that's the only thought that comes to mind when things get a little dicey. I remember how it was when she was hospitalized, and how my only concern was in getting her back to the house, and I'm so glad and grateful to have her here.
Do you still get cranky at each other, mum?
We have our days.
I mean, it's normal, isn't it? It's normal to have somebody who's really sick, really unwell, that you want to do everything for, but then you also want to tell them off and tell them to shut up, or you want to tell them to be quiet, or you want to tell them to behave.
It's more the other way around, but yes.
Alina, mum drives you nuts?
No.
No?
No. No.
Are you honest? Are you being honest now?
Yeah.
Look, we can all admit it a little bit. This is a bit like a therapy session, all right? So everyone can just tell the truth for a little bit if they want to, but if they don't want to, it's okay as well. We can all lie. There's no problem at all. I know how frustrating it was for my wife. She was caring for me at the beginning, and man, she copped so much abuse because I was not myself. Like I was in a completely different headspace in the world, you know, like I was just gone. I was angry. The medication was making me act up and misbehave and all sorts of things. And some of it was not only the medication, some of it was me as well, right? Upset at what happened and all the usual stuff. And I reflect on it now, and I know that she was doing it really tough. I never knew how tough she was doing it because she never told me, because she was interested in me becoming well and not making it about her. But at some point, I think caregivers need to make it about them, especially when it's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. Is that what is happening with you, Mum? Is it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that you're with Alina?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
And did you put your
Pardon?
and did you put your life on hold?
Oh yes, there's nothing that goes on that doesn't revolve around her right now.
Yeah. And what was your life like up until the stroke? What were you up to? How did you spend your days?
Well, I was babysitting with my two grandchildren, and then there were some illnesses in the family, and I thought that I just thought that, and then COVID, this all happened. She got sick right around the time that COVID started, so it's been like the world is turned upside down.
Yeah. And is there anyone helping you out from time to time, Mum?
No, not presently. No.
Right. And is there any support for somebody like your caregiver and the person you're caring for? Is there any way that you guys can access any support, any kind of in-house support or external support?
I haven't looked at anything right now. We've been so busy doing outpatient therapy, so we're driving a distance from home to get therapy for the physical and the occupational and the speech. So we're really busy. So no, we haven't looked at anything like that yet.
Yeah. It's pretty common to be really busy at the very beginning of the whole stroke recovery and working out how to solve all the little problems that turn up. And then at some point when you start getting into a bit of a routine and you have solved a lot of the problems, then maybe there'll be some space or some time that's created for you to start to get curious about what other support you can bring in and how else you guys can support Alina, and also how you can give yourself a break, because caregivers do it really, really tough and they need help and support as well. We need to make sure that the caregiver is healthy and well. There's no point having two sick people.
That's true.
You know,
I wish she did more for herself. I wish she did more for herself.
I just want to say that we admire your work so much.
Yeah.
That of all of the people in all of the areas that we've looked into and researched, there is no single person that we enjoy hearing more than we enjoy hearing you. You're just a wealth of information.
well, I enjoy you telling me that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I felt the same as you. I was like Alina. I wanted to share and I wanted to help because there was not enough known. And when I went through my situation, it started 10 years ago. I'm still going through it, right? But clearly I'm in a different situation than a lot of other stroke survivors because we're all different. When I wanted to know how to help and what I could do, and I realized there was some people that weren't getting any support, weren't getting any awareness about the situation. Caregivers was one of those groups of people. And then I felt like if I'm going to interview people, I want stroke survivors to come on, but I didn't know how bad stroke was because I got this version of it. And then I met people who can't speak because of stroke, who can't see because of stroke, who speak but have got a different voice like Alina. And then I had to make a decision because I used to be ignorant. I had to make a decision. Do I want everybody on my podcast or just the people that can speak properly? And it's like, how will I be able to share what stroke is really about if I just have people on that can talk like I can clearly? That wouldn't be accurate representation of stroke survivors. So I've interviewed people that can talk like Alina, that have less ability to talk, and some people that can't talk at all. And we've used a machine recording to do that. So I also wanted to get caregivers on. I wanted to get caregivers on because they are part of our community. They are doing the heavy lifting as far as I'm concerned and caring for people who need the support, but the caregivers don't get any training. Mum, do you agree? There's no training, no support, no information about how you can do that really well, and then also at the same time how to support yourself.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Absolutely none. When she came home, we for some reason, because of COVID, we had no instructions on how to do anything, and she was on a feeding tube, which she still is, but I figured it out, and it was very daunting to come home in a hospital bed with a trach and a feeding tube and not able to communicate. It was, I was actually told not to bring her home. They wanted her to go to a facility, a long-term facility, and I didn't want that. And I know that she's thrived as a result of being here. She wouldn't be as well as she is if she was elsewhere.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So there's no, you have to become a medical expert overnight, and nobody tells you how to do
Right.
it. That is ridiculous. Doctors spend years and years in hospital to make sure that they don't do the wrong thing. Are you concerned when you first come home that you might do the wrong thing and make things worse?
Oh, obviously. But it didn't take me long to look. She's on no medication, and it didn't take me long to figure out that she was being over medicated,
Wow.
and things that she was suffering from when she was in, she no longer had a problem with. So I gained my confidence quickly.
Right. So one of the people that you might love to listen to me interview, guys, is Duncan Campling. He was on episode 133, and he spoke to me with a machine. So we did a little bit of preparation. We wrote the questions down. We gave him an opportunity to record his answers on his voice computer or whatever it's called. And then we did the interview about a week later. So you might find that interesting. And everybody that's been on the podcast just wants to share. They just want to help. They just want to put stories out there. It's a good way for family to kind of get an understanding of what is actually happening. So do you feel like this is something that is going to be worth sharing with the family? Are they going to be able to hear or watch this podcast episode?
Absolutely. Yes. It'd be great.
Yeah. Family and friends, because really they're the ones we want them to know what's going on. And we also want them to know that we understand if they don't know how to speak about what's happened to us, or how, if they don't know what to say, that it's okay. If they say the wrong thing, that we won't get offended. Might be a real good way to reach them without having to sit them down one-on-one and have a conversation with them.
That's true. That would be great.
So Alina, are you still on a feeding tube because there's a risk of choking when you chew and swallow food?
Yeah, what's it called? If I swallow, I could have
Aspirate.
aspiration occur. So, my vocal cord is still paralyzed, so I can't swallow properly.
So,
Okay.
so what she takes in, because the right cord, the vocal cord isn't working, it could end up in her lung instead of her stomach. So, but she's really come a long way. I mean, she's eating mashed foods now, and we're looking forward to having the tube removed once she can keep her intake at a level of the proper calories and obviously the nutritional value.
Okay, so that's improved as well. So you're getting slowly able to increase the kind of food that you eat, and then increase the amount that you eat, so that you're getting, say, your regular 2,000 calories a day or whatever the number is. But at the moment, you're not able to get that many calories through chewing it and through your mouth yet.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the tube is connected to where? Where is that actually attached? I know it's somewhere around the belly.
Right.
That's your cat. Hello, kitty cat. The cat wanted to be on the podcast too.
In my stomach. In my stomach.
It's connected to your stomach.
Yeah.
Okay. And aspiration is what happens when food goes into your windpipe instead of your throat.
Yeah. Instead of going to my stomach, it goes to the lungs.
To the lungs. Yeah. Okay. So you've found over time that that's getting better. And when is there some kind of a goal or some kind of a time frame where you're hoping to move from being tube fed to being fully able to eat normally, or something close to normal?
Her speech therapist thinks that maybe in a couple of months that might be possible. So, and she's off. When she came home, she was on continuous feed, which really limited movement for her and all. But I figured out how to give her the bolus feedings, and so she's eating. She's having that about 3 times a day, which is great because that way she can get around without being attached to anything.
Right, right. So, Mum, you're gone back to caring for the child that you already cared for when she was born. Are there similarities? Is it a completely different experience? How do you relate to this version compared to the first time?
You know, it's really indescribable, number one, but I can only tell you that I really do see light at the end of the tunnel here, and I know that she can improve, and I know that this isn't a permanent situation. So it's just getting through it that is the journey. So I'm hopeful.
Do you agree, Alina?
Yeah. I have to get better.
Yeah, you
I
will.
have to.
Yeah, you have to, and you will. Things will improve. Is she a pretty cool mum? Think about if
Yeah.
she could.
Yeah. I feel very lucky.
Yeah,
People get frustrated, but at the end of the day, I know how lucky I am.
yeah, yeah. She's a pretty cool lady. I can hear that in her voice. I love um the psychology that she's approached, that she's used to approach this situation. You know, it's a situation where things are difficult, but they're going to get better. We have to get through it. It's undescribable, but we have things that we need to achieve and overcome, and it's not permanent. And I love that. That is probably one of the best things that I've heard on a podcast, is that this particular current state and situation, although it feels quite possibly, you know, being shitty and ongoing and never ending, it is not permanent. It will shift and change. That's a great way to think about things.
Recovery is so slow. That's the thing I was unaware of before. Recovery is so slow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is so slow. I would love to have you guys back on the podcast in 12 months from now to show me how far you've come.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Now, Mum has remained behind the camera for this whole time, and she
Yeah.
hasn't revealed herself. We don't even know her name. So why don't we get Mum in front of the camera and we can actually get to see her and we can ask her name.
There you go.
That's not enough. That's not enough.
Here.
Hey, hello.
My name's Barbara.
Hi, Barbara. Lovely to meet you.
And I'm so thrilled. You really are just really special to us. Your voice, whenever I hear your voice, I come running to hear what it is you're saying.
Thanks so much, Barbara. How old are you? You look so young.
I'm so old.
You don't look it. How old are you?
This is a podcast. Other people
Yeah.
will be hearing this.
So
I'd rather
what?
not.
You'd rather not.
I turned 66.
Okay. Well, you look so young. You look fit, healthy, energetic. That's where I was getting at. You guys look like there's not a lot of gap between you in age. And yeah, I was kind of right. It's only 26 years. It's nothing. You were a young mum.
Yes, very young.
Yeah. Well, I can
Yeah.
relate to that. I was a young dad. I was 22 when I became a dad.
That sounds about right. Yes, that is too young. Too
So
young to have children.
yeah,
Yeah.
too young to know what the hell you're doing, and let alone raise kids, right?
And your children are how old now?
25 and 21.
Well, that's incredible, right? He looks so young himself.
So that's
Look
the
who's
thing.
talking about.
I'm trying to get my head around. I'm trying to get my head around the whole age gap, and I think it's great to be young and energetic when you're having kids because you guys can support each other for a long, long time to come. And that's kind of one of the benefits that I didn't realize that I was going to be able to have when my kids were so young, and I was so young when I had the stroke. I was 37, so that lack of old age between, that lack of gap between me and my kids meant that they kept me young, and I had something to focus on and something to aim towards getting better about, and something to teach them and to leave them better for what happened to me, like to kind of give them life experience without going through the tough, hard parts of it. Does that make sense?
You have such a great attitude. You really do. Such a solid, so centered and truly balanced. I really enjoy hearing you.
Yeah, I try to. It's something that I work on. And, people who listen to me sometimes, and I ask them to be on the podcast, they get all flustered. What am I going to say? Oh, it's Bill. Bill wants me on the podcast. And it's like, I'm just a regular guy learning all the same stuff that you're learning. And I don't know how well I'm doing until I've become better and I reflect back on how far I've come. So I'm constantly in this learning phase, like you guys, about what's the best way to go about this. We can choose a way that's difficult and hard and mentally challenging, and we can suffer through that, but that's not the most useful. We suffer regardless of which way we go forward. We may as well use suffering to our advantage to get something out of it. And that's kind of what I see you doing. You said it, this is only temporary, this current situation. And I love that about what you said. It's about what's going to happen in the next, how things will change for the better in the next 2, 3 or 4 or 5 months or 6 months or a year. So I just hope that my thinking is making other people think. And if they disagree with me, I'd love to hear from them. Tell me, come on board to the podcast, leave a message on the YouTube, or, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't mind, but I think this is the only way we're going to get through it together, right? And it doesn't matter how far we are in the world. We just, we can all help and support each other. And you think that I'm helping you, and I am, but you guys are also helping me. That's what's really important for the people who come on this podcast to also know.
It's amazing how an experience like this also makes you realize how much you can do that you didn't think you were able to do. That's always an eye opener.
That is such an eye opener. Look, it's such a pleasure to see you both. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Alina, I'm going to invite you back in a year, right? We're going to do this again. So is there anything you want to say to leave us with before the end of the episode?
Just said, don't give up. If you had it, don't give up.
Don't give up. I couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and got something positive from it. Please comment, like, or share. If you're watching on YouTube, follow and subscribe and hit the notifications bell. Also, let other people know that the podcast exists. Please comment, like, and share the episode. Give the show a thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. I'd love it if you interacted with the show. It makes a big difference to the way the podcast episode ranks. Therefore, it should be found easier by other stroke survivors, hopefully from all around the world, and that will help them have a better stroke recovery. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.